Hello Mayhem Makers, welcome back to another Mindy's Monday Mayhem Live. This month is going by super fast, but there's been so much fun things going on. Now I know a couple weeks back I did a basic English paper piecing demo, and it came with a whole bunch of questions, which I love. A lot of you are excited to potentially learn how to English paper piece. So just a reminder, we have beginning English paper piecing, which is all handwork. Keep that in mind. Starting next month, you can join in the subscription. Just go to our website, thequiltingmayhem.com, go under shopping, go to subscriptions, and you can find beginning English paper piecing. And so I thought maybe I'd talk a little kind of next level, because I went just basics. Basic hexie, how to put hexies together. All right, so I have my handy dandy paper piecing bag. I love this thing. This is the Mega Dream bag, and it just holds everything. And I love that it folds down. So as you can tell, it's been another crazy day. So all my stuff is just thrown in this bag. I mean, wait till you see. It's like the Mary Poppins bag for my paper piecing. So in here I have my cute, I love this thing. These tins we have in different designs. But look, it holds my threads, my thread gloss. Yeah, remember we talked about thread gloss, helps condition your thread, keep it from breaking. And it just all sits in this little tin. Look at that. So we have all kinds of designs. If you need something like that to keep all your little things together, or they make great gifts, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, getting old, gotta have my readers. And then I have all my pieces and parts. So here is where I took the hexies I was showing you, and I started sewing them together. I love that, like, the day after my live, the next day one of my employees was like, so how do you do, like, Y seams with paper piecing? All right, well, I hear you. We'll start showing you how to do some of those next level things. I have got my handy lanyard. If you don't have a lanyard, sew some fabric together, add a little clip to it, make yourself a scissor lanyard, okay? Otherwise, I'm sure I warned you, I love Ziploc baggies. They can be cheap dollar store baggies, but just baggies. Look, I have baggies for days. So I went home after the last paper piecing demo, and look, it just keeps coming out, and cut up. So I showed you piles of fabric and how to cut. This is look at that. I just took that template and cut all kinds of yummy, yummy hexies. So then I can sit and glue baste them into having fun. You know, I haven't paper pieced in a while, so this was kind of fun to get back into it. And so I have hexies for days, but I love it. So now that I have some prepped and some ready to prep if I need to, I can just pull and stitch and not have to worry about thinking about it, prepping every single time. And then my next level of hexiness that I did is I started splitting them in half and making cute little half ones. So I thought I'd kind of talk about that a little bit. So if you guys wanted to take your basic hexie game up just that little bit of notch, start throwing 2 different colors together in one hexie, and I've got a whole bunch ready to stitch. I just kind of show you how to do that, because it's fun to change it up, make it not just plain flower-like, but it's not super complicated. I even have in here, I have a little 4x8 mat. These are great because it either fits in the bottom, makes a nice flat bottom, or I can pop it up on the side, all that kinds of stuff. And then there's pockets. Look, it's empty almost. I got my wonder clips, I got some threads, my glue pen, all organized. Oh, my templates are in here too. Told you, Mary Poppins bag. I love this thing. Okay, so that's the crazy train I've kind of been on with the paper piecing lately. So let's tell you the easy peasy part. All I do, so I take my paper hexie, and then I take a ruler. This is my beloved 4.5 by 6.5. This thing lives at my sewing studio, like right by my machine, to use all the time. Love this thing. So there's multiple ways to cut up your hexie, and so feel free. You can cut up this paper really any diagonal line you want. Okay. So for these guys, I actually cut from one point to the other. Okay. I did also. I haven't made more of these. Kind of go through the middle. And so I started making some like this too, which actually it will create two different shapes. I'll show you the difference. See? So I'm going to do some like this too, just to give it a little more pizzazz. All of the same paper. So you're not buying more stuff. Same paper, you're just going to make your own. All right? So for these easy ones where you're cutting through the points, you're literally just lining your ruler up from one point to the other. I take my rotary cutter, and yeah, I'm cutting paper with it, but you know what? I change my blade so often that it's okay. I'm either going to dull it on fabric or I'm going to dull it on paper. I buy in bulk. And then you have two. And then all you have to do is essentially the same thing with your fabric. Now, you could turn this into essentially your template to cut out fabric. I was a little lazier because I had a whole bunch of these pre-cut. So then I just, laid it on my fabric, chopped off the excess I didn't need. I'll show you on a solid one so you can kind of see. Let's see if I can find one that's going to show up against this mat. Take this peach. Okay, so I'm laying it so it still has seam allowance around the white, and then I'm going to lay the ruler on top of that straight line of the paper to make sure I still have seam allowance. I'm going to chop off the extra of this. All right. Now, did I save all these little guys? No. They came to a scrap bin, and I think one of my employees actually already scooped them up and sewed them into something. She's a miracle worker. Okay. So then now I have my paper with my fabric, and I can just take my trusty glue pen and baste. Okay. Easy peasy, right? And make all kinds of these. So the same goes no matter how you want to cut up your paper. You can cut it through the middle. You can cut it like from the point to point to give it kind of this half hexie. It's generally what this one's called, is a half hexie. Right? All that kind of stuff. So, see, you just whip that bad boy out. Now, and then I went through and I paired all mine up and just clipped them so that I could sit down and sit and just put a bunch of these together. So that's kind of what I'm in the process in here. All right. Otherwise, if you're taking your paper and you want, say, this design, what you do, take it, and I measured and went, yep, it's 2 inches across because these are 2-inch hexies. Lined my ruler. I took the 1-inch mark from the edges. So I was 1 inch from the very tip to the center of the paper and just cut it in half that way. And that's what made these guys. And then you're essentially going to do the same thing when you go to cut your fabric. You'll lay it on here. Lay your ruler so that you have some seam allowance. So you're essentially going to be 1 1/4 or 1 3/8 from these outer points, right? Because you want that seam allowance. Kind of line it up just for fun. Make sure your paper's in there. Make sure you have enough room. And then cut. And you'll be able to baste it. Be ready to roll. Okay, so you can have all kinds of fun with one hexagon. Other thing you could do is you could even go crazy and cut twice. All right, have some fun. cut them back so they look the way they should, back together. Then on the other. And then you actually end up with diamonds and triangles, right? And then you can cut out fabrics and baste them all together, and you'll have these funky fun shapes in your hexagons. Still, all with one paper. So, if you started with some hexies, this is what's gonna have that whole next level game for you guys. Simple, easy, because you're just gonna take that one and then use your paper as your template versus using the acrylic templates like we have. And you could invest in all kinds of acrylic templates, all these shapes if you wanted. But if you're not doing a lot of them, I just use the papers, and then I just make sure I'm using the edge, which I love. So the Creative Grid already has at least a 1/4 inch edge. So if I'm making sure when I have it on the fabric that the 1/4 inch is on the edge of the paper and at least a 1/4, you have enough. Generally, I like to have at least 3/8, so I would have to scoot it over. So minimum a 1/4. I like 3/8. There is also the add a 1/4 and add a 3/8 ruler. Didn't grab those, but you could use that also. So you could lay your paper down and use that ruler to cut that extra seam allowance. That also makes it extra helpful, because then you're not trying to look through the ruler onto the paper, all that kind of jazz. So all kinds of ways to have fun. And then you just start putting them back together and then can start adding them in. So if you want Y seams, that's the other tip. I'll show you Y seams. Okay, so notice I've gone and I've just sewn kind of L shapes to get these all into this much of the flower. This is where I would now potentially need what they call a Y seam, because when I added them, I did the bottom and then I put these two together, and then bottom, these two, and just kept going. Okay, so let's see what guy do I like? Do we want Graham? Sure, why not? And then deciding how I want to put them in here. So we're gonna have some fun, start doing something like this, right? So I'm starting the same way. Taking right sides together, using my clip, and I'm gonna stitch down from the outer edge to the center. Now remember, this is paper. It's all very pliable, bendy. Do not be afraid to bend it. It's gonna do just fine. So unless you cut it, let your dog get a hold of it and chew it, any of that kind of stuff, then you might have a problem with it. But it's okay with bending. Let's see if I can thread my needle on camera. Aha. I figured it was just gonna be a Monday and be like, nope, no needle threading for you today. Then do we remember quilter's knot? So sharp point of needle facing this way, tail end facing that way. I pinch my threads actually between my thumb and my finger, and I wrap it around the needle 4, 5, 6 times, and then I pinch the thread wrap in the needle. You can't see it because it's tiny, just trust me, and then pull. So I've got the thread wrap in my fingers here. I'm just pulling gently till a knot in my thread appears, and then I trim it. So that's what I call the quilter's knot. Super easy. So we're going to start thimble. I always use a thimble. I do not have callus fingers, so I have to have one. And then we're going to start the same way I showed you the first time, is I'm just starting at the very corner, this outer corner, and I'm going to bury that knot kind of up underneath the fold, and then just whip stitch my way, sewing at myself. Oh, and I know last time I said that we had an English paper piecing club. Apparently I lied. We have one coming again. There was a teacher, she was doing both English and foundation paper piecing. Apparently that kind of lost what it was doing during COVID. So we're bringing it back, so don't worry. So even though I was incorrect, we'll fix it. So there will be an English paper piecing club again with Linda Angel, so that you can come and she can show you her method of stitching because she does differently than the whip stitch. Her method is fabulous. It's generally, I believe, what you call like a flat back stitch or a ladder stitch, and it hides very well in your fabrics. So I'm just going to quickly do this. So my stitches are not maybe as pretty as I would like. I'm not taking quite as much care. But the real important piece is going to be showing you how to do that corner join of what they would call a Y seam. So anytime two seams come together at an angle that is not 90 degrees, generally is called a Y seam. And in sewing with your machine, you have to do a little bit different steps. Generally you stop 1/4 inch before the end, and then at the other side you're 1/4 inch away from the middle, and it all lays nice. But yeah, a lot of people don't like it because it's not a super exact science. But if you want to get some of those more angular pieces in, it's what you have to do. So move my little wonder clip. You're going to see I'm actually kind of folding this up. So I've got this bad boy almost in half just to make it more manageable because these pieces are bigger. So keep stitching. So like I said, don't worry, it's paper. It will bounce back and be just fine no matter how many times. I have done, if you've seen the Tula Nova English paper piecing, that took a lot of manipulating of the papers, or the Mille Fiore. I taught that one when I first opened the store. That was a lot of different shapes, a lot of different angles and smaller sizes, those kinds of things. So definitely learned how to do these funky angles just by pure repetition. So I'm coming to the corner, and generally what I do is I do a couple stitches at the corner because I don't want that corner popping open and having a big hole in my quilt. So I'll do what I call like a tacking stitch or locking stitch. I'll do a couple threads there in that corner because I want it nice tight. So now we got this guy kind of flapping in the wind, right? So now I'm just folding. Essentially this poor guy is going to have to fold in half, and I'm lining up this corner and this corner so that these 2 points are going to meet for sure, and this guy's getting kind of folded. And then I drop my clip in this corner because my thread's still over here waiting to keep going across, and this is where I'm going to end. So I want these 2 points to stay. I don't want them shifting, going anywhere, because if it gets off center, then the next seam doesn't quite meet, and it's just like when your 1/4 inch joins in your blocks don't match, and it makes you cranky. We don't want cranky. So then all I do is a couple tacking stitches in this first corner here. Same concept, is I don't want it popping open, I don't want it going anywhere. And sometimes I'll even go across to the corner that I just left and do a diagonal so that hole stays nice and firmly closed once you open it all back up. And you got to be careful, it likes to go around that corner at the far end if you have too long of a thread. So a lot of times I make sure that I pull my tail so that I don't have too long of a thread. And notice I didn't cut, I didn't do a lot of starts and stops. I try to do it all one thread if I can, because the more starts and stops, the more points that may come apart. And of course, I should know better than to wear a really warm sweater, because all these lights make it hot. So, getting a little toasty up here. But I just keep sewing. So I did a couple tacking stitches, I did a diagonal stitch just to keep that hole nice and tight, and then I can even kind of bunch up this guy Notice I'm kind of crunching them in my hand just so I can get a better grip. And it's okay. It's going to spring back out and lay flat when all's said and done. And I'm just going to keep stitching if I can. Now that I'm all toasty up here. Okay, so just keep whip stitching. Hopefully if you guys started trying this, you maybe found the stitch that you like, the length of thread that you like. Hopefully you haven't been too frustrated. If you just signed up for the beginning English paper piecing and you're waiting for all the lessons and things to start, don't worry. I just got the Facebook group started. We'll get you guys invited to it and start getting you some tutorials. And I'll give you tips like this one. As you can tell, I went and got a knot in that guy. That's always fun. Because I didn't put thread gloss. That'll teach me. I tried to skip a step and now my thread doesn't like me. That's always fun. You know, like I said, it's Monday. We're just going to be a little more aggressive as we pull it through. Fortunately, it's a tiny knot. And I am. So if you get a tiny knot, as long as it's tiny, you can just kind of give it a little yank. And I just keep going. Because I really don't want to stop. That is my goal. I don't want to stop. So here, I always tell you guys, I teach you all the things you don't want to do. That's one of them. You hopefully want your thread to stay a little more managed so you don't have to do that little technique. So, but I just want to get to this corner and show you what we're gonna do. We'll get there. Appreciate you guys watching every week. Hopefully this is something new that you haven't learned before, because that's kind of my goal. And then, since I have you, I've had a request for some beginning quilting tutorials. If that's something you're interested in, let me know. For those of you that like to learn from home or aren't maybe in the area but want to learn some beginning regular quilting, I will most likely start doing some tutorials, maybe a beginner sampler that's virtual online that isn't a mystery. I'll let you know what everything is, type of thing. And then you could follow along every week and I would teach you a new block, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of in the works too. There's always something. All right, so I'm back at another corner. I'm just going to do my couple stitches, even with this little frustrating knot in it. Okay, so here we are. I have two sides. I'm going to do the third because I want all ends closed. So same thing. I'm going to put my edges together like I would a normal block. I'm putting my Wonder Clip on this corner because I don't want my corners to shift. I want them to match at both ends. And then I'm going to take my thread, do some tacking stitches at the beginning, and probably do one or two across to the corner that I just finished at to help keep that center join closed so we don't have any gaps. We do not like gaps. Okay, so a couple there, and we're just doing little baby stitches, just little chunks of thread. They don't need to be big huge stitches, just little ones through both sides, and then I'm just going to keep stitching all the way up. And once I get to the end, this flower doesn't have to be a flower, but that's essentially what it is to begin with. I will be adding more so it won't stay flower-like very long. Will be what I have, and then I'll decide if I'm going to make more flowers or if I'm going to keep adding and just keep making this one bigger and bigger. I still haven't decided that yet. I think I told you guys 2 weeks ago I didn't know exactly what I was going to make. Still don't. We're going full mayhem style, losing the thimble as it happens. These ones I like because there's silicone and then metal, and so because I've had leather and I like the leather, but the leather eventually stretches and you have to replace it. I mean, guess the silicone eventually wears out. It doesn't seem to wear out for me as quickly as the leather, so I like it a little better. But there's so many kinds. There's metal ones, there's ceramic ones, there's really pretty ornate ones. I mean, use whatever works for you, just like needles. You know, just because I use a Milner doesn't mean that you need to use a Milner. Play around with them, all that kind of stuff. Embroidery needles is what some people use. Sometimes Milners are also known as straw needles. So you might find some that say straw versus Milner. Same kind of idea. They're a little longer, but they're thinner, so you're not making quite as big a hole in your fabrics because it's just a thinner needle. Okay, so I'm just coming to my end. Okay, and I'm going to do a couple stitches again. And then I do one. I'm going to go through, and then I'm going to take my needle and loop it around and put it back through that hole to kind of make it as a knot. And then I actually take it and I'm going to kind of bury it under this fold. I'll still be able to see it, but it's going to be under there before I clip it, just so it's not sticking out at me as I'm trying to add more pieces. And trim it. Park this back in my lanyard before I lose it, because I will. And then flatten this guy out. But look, now it's a flower. Yay! Now that the flower's done, I can take this paper out and reduce the bulk, because it has something sewn to every side. So as you can tell, usually I have a stiletto. It's the only thing that apparently didn't make it into my bag. I have multiple English paper piecing bags, so my tools don't always travel from one to the other. So that paper I can use again now. Whee! More papers. And then, look, it's all empty in the middle. But that way now when I start, like if I added another ring, I would have a little more manipulation, at least in the middle of this guy, as I added more and more and more, because that's what we're going to do, because this is not very big to be quilt, but you could make it a table topper, right? So super fun, especially when you're just learning. Start simple. When I add my flower to another, will I use different color? Oh, possibly. You know, Diane, that would mean I had a plan. I actually don't think I'm going to. I think I'm actually going to start just blending colors as I go around. So I'm potentially going to start pulling in like the teals and blues. So I'm not going to do like a whole tealy blue themed flower. I like this potentially is going to come, I'd probably put them more like over here, and then start just kind of making even color pots. I don't know, there's something in my head. I'll keep showing you what's going on. So I haven't decided, but I don't think I'm going to do just flowers. I think I'm going to potentially just kind of keep adding on and growing it, but who knows? I may decide that's too much mayhem and stick with doing at least some flowers and then joining them together. I haven't committed that far. I'm just making all these, geez. Does this not just make you happy? I mean, I could make teals and greens and all different colors. But I'm thinking, because I started doing the half colors, I'm going to use them to merge into some other funness. So we'll see. I got this far, yay! But if you're interested, we do have the beginning subscription that's starting, and you will each month get some fabrics and papers and things to play with, so that you can learn along with us. You can decide how you want yours laid out. I mean, ideally, even in the beginning, grandmother flower garden type, you know, you potentially could stitch this down onto a square and make individual squares where each flower just kind of stood on its own, and then sash it and do all kinds of things. So, I mean, there's all kinds of options for you guys. We're gonna help you kind of explore what one speaks to you, because I know you're all different. Not everybody's quite as mayhem as I am, which I can appreciate. But we're gonna help you discover that journey. So that is my tutorial for today. I called it kind of English paper piecing 2.0. But hopefully that didn't make your head explode. I'm hoping it was more kind of a, ooh, new pretty options with the same stuff that I may already be working with. So, all right, guys, I hope you have a fabulous Monday. And this February, I think I saw sunshine, which makes me excited. So hopefully you're gonna go out and enjoy some of that sunshine and have a fabulous rest of your week and keep on stitching.